The Resonance of Shadows. Elias Thorne lived in the dead space of the Smithsonian, a basement where formaldehyde burned the back of his throat every morning and stained his fingernails the yellow of old teeth. Faded pelts lined metal shelves, their glass eyes catching the fluorescent light in ways that made him think of accusation. He was a desk biologist now, a man who had retreated into the past after a flash flood in the Amazon 3 years ago had washed away his relationship with Sarah. He had chosen the discovery over her safety. He could still feel her elbow in his grip as the floodwater rose to their waists, could still see his own eyes reflected in the helicopter's window, not looking at her face, but past her shoulder at the riverbank, calculating whether he had 30 seconds to grab the sample cases. They hadn't spoken since the rescue helicopter landed. The email sat in his inbox for 2 hours before he opened it. The sender: London Museum of Natural History, Mammalian Research Division, Sarah's division. His cursor hovered over the delete button. His right foot tapped against the desk leg. 1, 2, 3, 4. A rhythm he'd developed in the months after she stopped answering his calls. He opened it. His director dropped a satellite print on his desk an hour later, not bothering with pleasantries. SGS-7 was mapping mineral deposits in the Andes, he said. The infrared sensors picked up a heat signature, but the visual cameras showed a hole, a moving blotch of true black. Elias's foot went still. He knew the look. It was structural coloration taken to its evolutionary extreme. It was the Nigrum-Pardus, the black leopard that wasn't black at all, but absent. A ghost he'd spent 5 years trying to prove existed. Across the Atlantic, at the London Museum of Natural History, Sarah bit her thumbnail until she tasted copper. The email sat open on her screen. Deployment confirmed. Lead field partner, Elias Thorne. Her boyfriend, Marcus, Steady Marcus, who worked in IT and never asked her to choose between safety and ambition, had asked that morning if she'd be home for his birthday next month. She'd said yes. She'd meant it. She looked at the screen. Her heart hit a rhythm she thought she'd forgotten. Part anger, part nostalgic ache. Her thumb was bleeding. She wrapped it in a tissue and typed one word: accepted. That night, she didn't tell Marcus about Elias. She told him about the cat, the career opportunity, the chance at tenure. All true. None of it the whole truth. They met at a research station near the Salar de Uyuni. The white expanse stretched to the horizon, a blank canvas that made Elias's eyes water with its emptiness. Sarah arrived on the second helicopter, stepping out with her hair shorter than he remembered, her field jacket professionally weathered. She'd always been good at looking like she belonged. "You look tired, Elias," she said, bypassing the handshake. Her voice was careful, neutral, the tone she'd use with any colleague. "It's the altitude," he lied. His foot tapped twice against the tarmac before he forced it still. Right. She knew. She'd always known. Let's get the gear sorted. They worked in professional silence, setting up a light trap, a circle of powerful halogen lamps designed to create a perimeter of illumination so intense that anything crossing it would be visible by pure contrast. The graduate students gave them space, sensing the electric charge between them that had nothing to do with the equipment. Around midnight, the light didn't reflect. It vanished. Photons hit something and ceased to exist. In the center of the white salt, a flat, featureless silhouette appeared. A cat-shaped absence, like a sticker of perfect black pasted onto reality. Looking at it made Elias's eyes ache, searching for edges that simply weren't there. Sarah's spectrometer trembled in her hands. "It's absorbing 99.9% of the light," she whispered, her voice tight with something between terror and exhilaration. "It's actually—" Elias stepped forward, his breath coming fast. One discovery, just one, and maybe it would justify everything, and his boot snagged a cable. He let out a sharp, frustrated curse, the sound cracking across the salt flat like a gunshot. The creature shimmered. For half a heartbeat, Elias could see the individual carbon nanotubes of its fur vibrating, responding to the acoustic wave. Then it vanished, not running, just ceasing to be visible, as if someone had closed a door between dimensions. Sarah's jaw clenched so hard he could see the muscle jump. It didn't like your vibe. We had it. We had it. I know. Do you? She turned on him, 3 years of silence breaking like a dam. Do you actually know? Or are you still so focused on the next sample that you can't see what's right in front of you? The graduate students found urgent tasks in their tents. Elias's foot tapped. 1, 2, 3. We need to go higher, he said finally, not meeting her eyes. To the black shale, where the contrast is lower, where we're not broadcasting our presence like a lighthouse. Sarah bit her thumbnail, tasted blood, stopped. Fine. We go higher. In the high shadow canyons, the air was thin enough that every breath felt like pulling sustenance from nothing. They tried again with a thermal corridor, a funnel of heat-sensitive cameras that required no visible light. Again, the creature appeared in the gray-black rocks, a shadow blacker than the darkness it stood in, drinking light that wasn't even there. Elias reached out to adjust the camera angle. His hand brushed Sarah's shoulder, just steadying himself on the steep incline, and she flinched. The muscle memory was automatic. His touch meant a choice was coming, and she would come second. The cat emitted a low, haptic growl, a sound felt in the chest more than heard, and dissolved into the shadows like ink in water. Don't. Sarah's voice was flat. Just don't touch me when we're working. I know what you were doing. I know you didn't mean anything by it. That's the problem. They didn't speak for 6 hours. Back at camp, they stripped the gear with the methodical silence of surgeons. Sarah's hands moved faster when she was angry, efficiency becoming its own language. It's the ultrasonic pinger, she argued, holding up the device they used to map terrain in darkness. It hears the frequency. We're announcing ourselves in a spectrum we can't even perceive. No, Elias said, pointing to an oscilloscope with hands that trembled slightly. Altitude, he told himself, just altitude. Look at the electromagnetic interference. Every time it appears, our batteries and GPS units spike. The magnetic field goes chaotic. We're not just making noise. We're an electrical storm. He pulled up the data logs, and Sarah leaned in despite herself. There it was, their heart rates, elevated, their phones, their cameras, their own bioelectric fields creating a sphere of electromagnetic chaos. The creature appeared, and the chaos intensified. Then it fled, and everything flatlined. We go dark, Sarah said. No electronics, mechanical film camera only. They waited at a mineral spring for 18 hours. No phones to distract them. No GPS to confirm their position. Just 2 people who'd once known how to be silent together, now discovering they'd forgotten the language. The cat appeared at dawn, calm and obsidian. Elias held his breath. Sarah's finger rested on the shutter button of the old Nikon, a camera her grandfather had used to photograph the last Tasmanian tiger in captivity. The mechanism was purely mechanical. Springs and levers, no batteries. She pressed. The shutter clicked, a tiny sound, barely a whisper. The cat's head snapped toward them. Its ears, invisible against its light-absorbing fur, swiveled. It bolted, and the sound of its passage was like wind through a hole in the world. It's not the gear, Sarah. Elias was already at his portable microscope, examining a hair sample they'd collected from a tree where the cat had rubbed. His foot was tapping again. 4, 5, 6. Look at this. She looked. The carbon nanotubes in its fur weren't just aligned. They were networked, connected by microscopic filaments of what looked like neural tissue. It's conductive, she breathed. It's not just for light absorption. These structures... He adjusted the focus, his hands finally steady when there was data to interpret. They're sensing electromagnetic fields, the electrical activity of the human heart, the firing of neurons when we're stressed. Our conflict, our adrenaline. It's like a siren to them. We can't hide with dark mode. He looked up at her, and his foot went still. We have to hide by being still. Sarah bit her thumbnail, stopped when she tasted blood. Still, like meditation still? Like we're already dead still. They stared at each other across the microscope, and for the first time in 3 years, something like understanding passed between them. I don't know if I can do that around you, Sarah said quietly. Elias's throat worked. I know. They climbed the final 16,000-foot peak with nothing. No cameras, no tablets, no way to prove what they were about to see. Just their breath, thin and sharp as the air. We need to synchronize, Elias said when they reached the summit. The sun was setting, turning the distant salt flats the color of old gold. Jagged breaths create electrical spikes. The sympathetic nervous system lights us up like a Christmas tree. I know the physiology, Elias. Sarah's jaw was clenched again. I wrote my dissertation on parasympathetic response in high-stress fieldwork. I know. I read it. He had. Every word. Twice. She looked at him, something flickering across her face. Surprise. Old pain. You remembered. I remember everything. His voice cracked. That's the problem. Sarah sat on the cold stone. Her breath was coming fast, not from the altitude, from 3 years of carrying this weight. I can't, she said. I can't just breathe and forget. I'm not asking you to forget. Elias sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. I'm asking you to let it pass through, just for 10 minutes, just long enough. For the cat. For us. He closed his eyes. Breathe with me. Sarah closed her eyes. The darkness behind her eyelids was full of memories. The Amazon, the flood, Elias's hand on her elbow pulling her toward the helicopter while his eyes had been on the sample cases, already calculating loss. The betrayal had been so casual, so fundamental. Her breath hitched, her jaw clenched, her heart rate spiked. Focus on the exhale, Elias said softly. He was counting. She could hear it in his rhythm. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Let the anger be there. Don't fight it. Just let it exist and pass, like water. She thought of Marcus, safe Marcus, who would never ask her to choose, who would also never make her feel like the universe was condensing into a single moment of discovery. She thought of tenure, of career, of all the logical reasons she was here. Then she let them go. Not forever. Just for now. Her breath slowed. Her jaw unclenched. The static in her mind finally flatlined. The void moved. The Nigrum-Pardus condensed out of the darkness like matter precipitating from nothing. It wasn't emerging. It was becoming mathematically distinguishable from the shadows around it. Sarah felt the fine hairs on her arms pull forward, static electricity drawing them toward the creature. The cat was a walking capacitor, storing charge in its impossible fur. It stopped inches from them. Its eyes were twin galaxies of gold, the only color it couldn't absorb, the only light it had to reflect. Elias felt the cold, tingling sensation of the cat's conductive whiskers brushing his hand, reading the electrical output of his pulse. It wasn't mystical connection. It was the closing of a circuit. The creature let out a subharmonic thrum. A purr felt in the bones, vibrating at a frequency that bypassed hearing and went straight to the brainstem. It circled them slowly, its velvet flank brushing Sarah's knee, and she felt her own heartbeat synchronize with its purr. Forgiveness felt like this, maybe, or just the absence of war. The cat stopped in front of Elias. It sat. It looked at him with those gold coin eyes, and he understood. It was giving him a choice. Reach for the camera that wasn't there, break the stillness, prove the discovery, or stay. Elias's hands remained in his lap. His foot didn't tap. His breath stayed even. The cat tilted its head, acknowledgement perhaps, or approval, and stepped backward into a shadow cast by a boulder. Because it reflected no light, because it was mathematically identical to the absence of photons, it became the darkness. It didn't disappear. It just stopped being distinguishable from nothing. Sarah let out a breath she'd held for 3 years. Her hand was in Elias's. She didn't remember reaching for it, and he didn't remember taking it. But there it was. "We didn't get the shot," she whispered. Elias looked at the empty space where the hole in the world had been. His thumb moved across her knuckles, once, twice. His heart was beating in a slow, perfect, and silent rhythm. "No," he said. "We got the silence back." Sarah's eyes burned, not from the thin air. "The helicopter's coming at dawn." "We could wait here," Elias said. He wasn't looking at the shadow where the cat had vanished. He was looking at her. "Watch for it again. Document the site properly. Do the science right this time." Sarah bit her thumbnail, stopped before she broke skin. "That could take weeks." "Yeah. I have a life in London, a boyfriend, a tenure review." "I know. He's safe. He's good. He'll never make me choose between him and the work." "You should keep him," Elias said, and his voice only shook a little. "You should keep that." Sarah looked at their joined hands, at the shadow where something impossible had been, at the man who'd broken her heart by loving discovery more than safety, who'd just chosen to let a career-defining moment vanish rather than disturb the silence. "The thing about safety," she said slowly, "is that it's not the same as being alive." Elias's breath caught. "We wait," Sarah said. "We do the science. We see if we can learn to be still. Together? Let's start with in proximity and work our way up." A smile ghosted across Elias's face, the first real one she'd seen in 3 years. "That's empirical. I can work with empirical." They sat on the ridge as the stars emerged, bright and cold and infinite. Somewhere in the darkness below, a creature made of living shadow moved through a world it didn't reflect. And for the first time since the flood, 2 people sat in silence without the static of old wounds making them visible to the things that fed on chaos. Sarah's hand stayed in Elias's. Her heart beat steady. The mountain was quiet. And that, she thought, tasting the thin air and possibility, was enough to build on. They sat on the ridge as the stars emerged, bright and cold and infinite. Somewhere in the darkness below, a creature made of living shadow moved through a world it didn't reflect. And for the first time since the flood, 2 people sat in silence without the static of old wounds making them visible to the things that fed on chaos. Sarah's hand stayed in Elias's. Her heart beat steady. The mountain was quiet. Down in the valley, where the black shale met the sky, something moved. Not the cat. Something smaller. Sarah squeezed Elias's hand once, then released it, reaching slowly for the binoculars she'd left in her pack. Through the lenses, she saw them. 3 shapes, darker than the gathering night. A female and 2 cubs, their impossible fur drinking the last light of day. The cubs tumbled over each other in play, visible only when they moved against the slightly less dark stone. Elias. Her voice was barely a whisper. There's a family. He looked where she pointed, and his breath caught. The adult female sat watching them, across a mile of empty air, across the threshold between possible and proven. She blinked once, gold eyes flashing like distant stars, then turned and led her cubs deeper into the shadows. Sarah lowered the binoculars. Her hand found Elias's again. "We have work to do," she said. "Yeah," he agreed. "We do." Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient silence. Below them, shadows moved through shadow. And between those two infinities, two people who had lost each other to ambition learned to be still enough to see what only silence could reveal. The helicopter would come at dawn. They would send it away. The end for now. Thank you for listening. If you liked this story, please consider subscribing.